Now, I wanted to get cracking with this video because it's probably going to be a bit of a mishmash and a mega one. So we got some news and, well, two bits of news actually. My first race, outdoor race of 2025 is coming up in a couple of weeks' time, in the middle of April. It's going to be the British Time Trial Championships for road bikes. So I don't have a time trial bike. Next best thing is a road bike time trial championship. But this one is particularly hilly. It's going to be up in the north of England near a place called Lancaster, but the actual circuit is going to be on quite a traditional circuit with a lot of history, the circuit of Ingleborough. And I've never ridden those roads before, but I have a hilly mountain time trial course just down the road from me here, which is very similar, about 50 kilometers and about 700, 800 meters of elevation gain, which is quite a lot really when you think about the course probably going to be taking around an hour and 10 minutes maybe on a road bike. So that's my first race. Now the second announcement, I suppose, is that we have a new supporter of my endeavours, and that is Continental Tyres. Now, to give you a little bit of history first, I've been using Continental Tyres, as I'm sure many people have, for many years. They're a very popular tyre brand, but each to their own. Everybody has different tastes and different comfort levels and different performance and different budgets, of course. So I've been using Continental Tyres for my races and performance-based things since I started racing. You're talking going back to 2012. And certainly when I was racing for Ravagando GLT, I raced on tubular Continental Tyres for years. So they've come on board and I couldn't be happier, to be honest, because things like tyres are, obviously very much personal preference, but also are, can be a big outlay, especially when you ride, 20,000 to 25,000 kilometers per year. There's a lot of wear and tear. So I'm really happy with that. And so today, I actually had a rest day today, and it's kind of dictated to by the weather. It's been a really grim day today in Wales, or in South Wales. And so I decided to book today in as a bike maintenance day, a bit of admin and things like that. So I went to see my mechanic this morning and we fitted the new tyres and a couple of other bits and pieces too. We fitted the 111s, the Continental Aero tyres in 29mm to my deep section wheels. I've got a set of 45/60s for this time trial, which I'm going to be using. They strike a nice balance between depth and weight. There is a maximum depth for the road bike time trial championships, and that is 90mm, which is really too deep if you ask me. Like, I actually think I'm going quite deep. I think potentially 35 to 50 mil is probably like the deepest I would go for a road bike time trial regulation. Anything deeper and I think you're starting to get into more aero territory, and so kind of goes against the whole idea of the non-aero category that is a road bike. But obviously it's not called a non-aero time trial, it's just called a road bike time trial championship, so it's up for interpretation. Needless to say, we're going to be trying out those aero tyres because I've read up a little bit about them, and of course Continental told me about them, and to be honest, I wasn't really in the market for them. I was all for using the 5000 TTs, which I used for quite a few kilometers last year, and they were quite surprised at how much I managed to get out of those tyres, how many kilometers that is. And of course we used those for the Cyclist PB, and we also won the Gran Fondo Ventoux on those same tyres actually. So I love them and they're really confidence inspiring. So I'll be using those tyres primarily this year, but I'll use the Aero triple ones for, other endeavours, such as this time trial. And then I'm going to be training on the 5000s. So we set up each of those tyres today. And also the gravel tyres, Terra Trail, I actually went for because, I like to do a little bit of adventure stuff off-road. But then I also want to be able to do a couple of gravel events in the UK this year as well. So that's going to give me the option to test out those in 40 millimeters, because that is pretty much as wide as I can take on the Factor LS that I have. So we set those up, tubeless everywhere, other than the Tubelitos will be carrying as spares in case anything happens. Hopefully nothing does happen. But yeah, today was a rest day. But that's because the last 3 days I've done a back-to-back VO2 max training block. And to be honest, I would say it's been a bit of a while coming, because sometimes you get a sensation rather than planning training blocks and interval sessions. Sometimes you feel when the time is right. A lot of my personal training sessions that I do and training blocks that I do are very much done on feel. There's a loose structure, but then there's very much a lot of internal feedback. And I've certainly noticed over doing the races that I've been doing virtually recently, the Zwift games, and been doing a lot of intervals where I've been pushing my FTP. I've noticed going up and up, both modeled and also just you can feel it, right? Like every time I do any kind of lengthy intervals around the 350, 360 watt mark, it feels manageable. And so I know that I'm capable of doing that kind of power. I look at some of the races I've done, and I've been touching 340 watts normalized power for close to an hour, and then a little bit less for an hour and 20. So you start to get an idea. It's not super complicated, but you get an idea of when you're kind of ready for the next level, shall we say. So what I decided to do, given that we're maybe 3 weeks away from this time trial race, is to really go through quite a sharp block of VO2 max work. And I would essentially do 2 days back to back and then see how I felt, and maybe do a third day. Now, I guess much of the literature would call this block periodization, where you would do, instead of spreading out your interval sessions maybe evenly and doing 2 sessions a week for 3 weeks, I'm doing, say, 5 sessions, potentially even 6 sessions in 1 week, and then doing 1 in the subsequent weeks following. Now, everybody's different, and so everyone can handle certain workloads, and everybody can adapt and recover and things like that. So, take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt if you ever think about trying to adopt that yourself. I would say it's very much something that a more experienced rider would do, someone with multiple years of training and consistency under their belt, because you have to be very careful with it. Now, I get something that I think many people call stage race legs, so you tend to somewhat feel better as the days go on, and I certainly felt that way after the second day. And the third day I went out for a little bit of a test and I did a session, and that went really well. I purposefully keep like the last day as a VO2 max session where I would just go out on natural terrain and do climbs of a certain length, probably around 4 to 8 minutes. Usually ends up being about 6-7 minutes, and I'll just ride them as hard as I can. And power is becomes somewhat irrelevant, and you just end up riding to feel. To be honest, my VO2 max sessions nowadays are more and more done on feel, and power is only something I look back on, and potentially, you know, a few weeks down the line I look back on that session, because it's good to have, but not necessarily measuring yourself by it there and then in the moment, because unless your power is super low, of course, but generally speaking, you know, I try to keep I try to keep that away from my vision, and I just try to focus on, you know, how does it feel, how hard am I actually going, and, you know, as long as I'm breathing fairly hard and I can see my heart rate is getting pretty high, you know, it's not quite max, you know, because you're not going to completely explode on these intervals, but you want to be getting towards that in the last couple of minutes. You know, a lot of people their heart rate will respond really quick and they'll get up to that sort of, you know, 85% of max heart rate, 90% or above, and be able to sustain that. You know, certainly as I've become fitter and fitter over the years, it certainly hasn't been a theme for the first, you know, 6 years of my training cycle, and that's going back at least 5-6 years ago. Nowadays it takes a lot longer for my heart rate to rise. I need a much larger warm-up, and so it's measured in a different way for me now than it used to be. It's certainly not one size fits all, you know, so it's really difficult to give advice on it because it's very much personal, you know, experience, and working with other riders and watching and how they respond to it. Then you can start to get an idea as to how to structure it and how to guide them into doing it in a way that will suit them. So it's the same with me. But yeah, so I intend now to finish off the week with, maybe today's Thursday, so tomorrow I'll do another interval session or a Zwift race, which, you know, might also push me to those high heart rates for quite a sustained amount of time. We're talking, you know, smallish bouts, you know, but you're accumulating minutes here and there. And so the natural sort of doing the intervals on natural terrain that I did yesterday is very motivating for me. That's why I like to save it to last. You know, if I do some structured work for the first 2 days, then my sort of reward is doing it on, you know, a hilly route, and I just get to launch it up the climbs. And, you know, obviously I enjoy climbing, so it kind of, I feed off that really well. So that's the way I've structured it. And then, so that'll be tomorrow. Friday I'll do a race or another session, and then Saturday probably just end up doing you know, a slightly longer group ride. That'll be the longest ride of the week. Total volume for this week will probably be you know, 10 to 15 hours. It won't be super large, but maybe I'll keep that for the following 2 weeks to end the block with a bit more volume and a little bit less intensity to you know, gradually adapt from this quite dense stimulus I'm going to give my body this week. So yeah. It's deceptively warm this morning. I dressed like it would be like 3 degrees, but actually feels a lot warmer. Classic spring. Speaking of classics, looking forward to watching them in the next couple of weeks. Poggy going for Roubaix and MVDP winning E3. I'll tell you what, those races must be super hard in the finale when you've got like the podium riders, Pedersen, MVDP and Ghana just riding for an hour, the last hour basically as a time trial. That's gotta be hurting. So I've come out early this morning because I'm gonna join the group ride, which I usually put on, but not this morning because I'm short on time, which is why I'm heading out earlier, to hopefully get about 3.5 to 4 hours of riding in, because it's the only long ride I'll do this week. Charlie's going to the gym this morning. She's been PBing very often in the gym, which is really cool. And me, well, I haven't been to the gym in months actually. What with the house move and then taking care of other business. But I need to get my act together because I should be going. There's no excuse really. It's nearly impossible to do with gloves on, or one hand. Oh, we've done it. The guy just spotted in the car park. So it's Battle on the Beach tomorrow, actually, which is the big 1,000 attendance, well, beach race, sand race. Obviously, I did it last year and the year before. I'm not doing it this year, primarily because, well, I've done it those 2 years and I just didn't feel the urge to go back, really, if I'm being honest. So I pretty much live at sea level now, which is absolutely terrible for my climbing endeavours in Europe. But it does mean I get to ride about 45 minutes with only 80 metres of elevation gain, which is great for like the start of endurance rides, or if I want to do some like long threshold efforts really early in the ride. Shorts! Oh! I'm finally going uphill, so it's quiet now, and I can demonstrate a function on this Garmin I've been using now for the last 2 or so months. It's the 1050, which, you know, full disclosure, they sent me. But didn't really ask much other than me to just take photos when I'm using it. So it's nothing really, I'm not like, you know, an ambassador of Garmin or sponsored by them. It's they've just given me the product. It's one tiny little feature that I like. That beep. I'm now in my lowest gear, and it's the same when I go to my highest gear. It tells me there's a little beep. At first I wondered what it was. I didn't know what the beep was, and I was trying to figure it out. I was like looking at the screen and trying to see if it was like a, you know, a distance or a lap function. But no, it was my gears. I didn't even ask you to do it. It's obviously somewhere in the settings, I imagine. There's loads of other cool features that I'm actually really enjoying with this 1050. You know, I obviously know it's a very expensive piece of technology, and even I started out with Garmin boy computers. They were, you know, a couple of £100 about 12-13 years ago, but they've come a long way. Everything's come such a long way. Oh, Paul!
My shoes, boy!
Oh!
My front head, sick. Wait till you see the front of me.
So having come back from the ride, I decided to spend the rest of my afternoon trying to be productive and sorting out the shed where I keep some of my bike washing stuff and just bits and bobs really that they really should be in their own little place, but I just kind of throw them in a box or whatever and leave them there and think, yeah, I'll find those no problem next time, and then end up having to take up everything inside the shed just to try and find like that one bolt that I'm looking for or something. So I need to figure out a better way of organizing this so that I don't spend the next 10, 20 years of my life or whatever it is desperately trying to look for whatever it is I've shoved away. But in the next video, I'm going to be showing you the progress that's happening so far in the pain cave. So I look forward to seeing you then. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.